Coming up on Sports Night.
Coming off big-time wins, lacrosse looks to carry its momentum into the postseason.
A group of Northwestern athletes hopes to have their names called in the NFL draft.
And baseball looks to get on track following a road series and a pair of midweeks.
Well, Calvin, it's a beautiful, balmy, sunny night in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're just a few minutes out from 32 of college football's best, witnessing their lifelong dreams come true.
Well, before we get to tonight's festivities in the NFL, we're bringing you our selections of Sports Night's finest Northwestern segments over the next 30 minutes.
You know what, Calvin? Thank God you're here because I totally jumped the gun on tonight's show. We've got 30, maybe 20 minutes until draft night, but it's Sports Night right now.
Welcome to Sports Night. Well, Braedon, speaking of big events, I know we're all looking forward to Northwestern's Dillo Day concert celebration coming up in under a month. If you had to guess, who do you think is going to be the headliner?
You know, Calvin, that's actually a great question. You see, if I could choose anyone in the world, I'd probably have to go Pitbull. One of my favorites, consistently in my top 5 on Spotify Wrapped. I think he might be a little too famous, maybe a little out of the scope of Dillo Day, but you know what? I'll be the hopeless optimist. Let's go Pitbull.
Well, fair enough. I mean, I hope that works out. But before that celebration, Northwestern lacrosse will be looking to take home some hardware in Ann Arbor this weekend.
With sole possession of the Big Ten title on the line, lacrosse took a high-stakes trip to Ann Arbor. Saturday night showdown between two ranked Big Ten squads as the Northwestern Wildcats look to capture another conference title against the Michigan Wolverines. Taylor LaPointe lined up at the 8-meter arc. She gets the run-up and puts it in the bottom right corner. Northwestern takes an early 1-0 lead in the first quarter. And Madison Taylor with the ball now. She lobs it to Aditi Foster. Foster looks for an open teammate, realizes she has a lane, and fires it into the cage. In a low-scoring affair, the Cats enter the half up 3-1. Wolverines passing around in the final third. Callie Norris dishes to Ava Klass, and Jenica Cuoco can't do anything to stop the point-blank shot. Michigan picking up steam in the third. Michigan now with a player up position. Peyton Shreves hesitating around the 12-meter arc. She makes a decisive cut towards the crease and puts the ball just past Cuoco's stick. The home squad takes the lead for the first time this evening. Fast break for Michigan now. Callie Norris blitzing down the field, blows past Jalen Roska and flicks it in the cage. Cats down in the fourth against the Wolverines. But it's going to be a nightmare scenario for Michigan keeper Elizabeth Johnson as Maddie Taylor takes a penalty try. Taylor runs up, ducks right, shoots left, scores. Northwestern erasing Michigan's momentum with just 10 to play. And it's number 25 at the 8-meter arc again. She scores her 4th goal of the night to put Northwestern back in front by 1 point. And that would conclude the game and Northwestern's regular season. Northwestern beats Michigan 9-7. And following that conference title clinching victory, the Cats will shift their focus to the Big Ten tournament. First up, a rematch with none other than the Wolverines of Michigan scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. local time.
Well, as Northwestern looks forward toward the upcoming Big Ten tournament, it's time to bring in our resident lacrosse analyst, Gabi Egozi, for more on the upcoming games. Gabi, thanks for coming on. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk some lacrosse.
Well, first question for you. When you look at Northwestern heading into the Big Ten tournament, obviously this is a team with a lot of momentum. What do you think they need to do well, and what do you think they're looking to kind of bolster in terms of the strengths that they've had?
Yeah, definitely. Well, Northwestern is seeking to defend its 7th title in the past 8 seasons, its 4th consecutive title for Northwestern. They are just an offensive, explosive team. They have depth and experience, and they know just how to handle high-pressure situations. They play fast and efficiently on offense, and this is a team that thrives when they're winning the draw and dictating tempo. Northwestern practically leads the Big Ten in every offensive category, from draw control percentage, draw controls, free possession percentage, scoring margin, and so many other categories. And Northwestern, there's just so much to say about its players, but we have to go by talking about Maddie Taylor, who I will get to in a bit. She has 77 goals on the season, 104 points. She really leads the way for the Cats, and there's no other person you want to call on during clutch time than Maddie Taylor.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Taylor, but looking at more of the specifics of the roster, who for Northwestern do you think really does need to step up in these situations, and which players do you expect to have the biggest impact out on the field?
Yeah, definitely. Well, firstly, I mentioned Maddie Taylor for the Wildcats. She leads the Big Ten in goals and points, leading both in each category by 20. She's ranked 5th in career goals in the NCAA. Maddie Taylor just is a creative shot maker in every single aspect of the game, from cutting, driving, or charging down the field. She gets it done every single way for the Wildcats, and she is just such a clutch player. Had some huge goals this season against UNC and other teams, to name a few. She's really gotten them back on track this season, to say the least. And then additionally to Maddie Taylor, I'm really looking at Noah Cumberland. She had a huge jump from her freshman and sophomore seasons now to her junior year. She recorded 17 goals and 5 assists this season, a huge jump from her first 2 seasons where she only recorded 10 points. Noah Cumberland is huge for this team. And in addition to her, you have to look at Aditi Foster with 50 points. And on the defensive end, Jenica Cuoco, the transfer goalie from Drexel, who has just done so much for the Wildcats on the defensive end, and a big reason why they've been so successful down the stretch.
Well, there's so much talent on this Wildcat roster, but in terms of the tournament as a whole, do you see any team in this tournament that either could make a surprising run or really even challenge the Wildcats?
Yeah, look, I think that there are 2 specific teams, if you're looking at teams that want to challenge the Wildcats here, and it's 2 teams that Northwestern has gone down the line with. I'm looking at Michigan firstly, somebody that they will be matching up against tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time. Michigan and Northwestern went down to the wire last weekend specifically. Northwestern came out of that one pulling away the 9-7 win. They won the draw control battle, which is big for them, 9-8, so a slim win there. But the Wolverines have a spearheaded, balanced Michigan attack. Emma Bradbury with 56 points, Callie Norris 53 points, Ava Class 48 points on the season. So they're going to be a tough opponent to match up against for Northwestern, and definitely one that the Wildcats are going to have to contain offensively. And on the other side of things, for Maryland, who's the other team I'm really looking at here, a team that Michigan previously took down, but Northwestern went again down to the wire with this season. They beat them 11-10 this season, and they also have balanced scoring. 5 players have recorded 40 or more points this season for Maryland, and you have to talk about JJ Suriano, their goalie, who has 175 total saves. So it'll be very interesting to see how things shake out for the Wildcats. First up, starting with their challenge tomorrow.
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the tournament plays out as a whole. Gabi, thank you so much for joining us.
And lacrosse is not the only Northwestern squad who showed out this week. Following a 3-game sweep of Penn State, softball looked to keep the good times rolling last weekend. A brilliant weekend for some softball as Northwestern welcomes a struggling Michigan State squad for a 3-game set. And on Friday, it was all Cats from the jump. After her RBI single in the first, this Emma Ray triple scored 2 in the second and helped propel NU to a 7-run lead after the opening 2 frames. And Northwestern would tack on 3 more shortly thereafter. Right here, taking game 1 in convincing fashion, Northwestern run-ruled the Spartans in just 5 innings. Now moving to game 2, ladies in purple picked up right where they left off. Emma Ray sending one deep to right center field for a 3-run moonshot. Cats on top early. However, with that being said, Michigan State wasn't going to go down without a fight. Sydney Dolasecki rips one down the left field line to score 2. She ties the game at 7 going into the bottom of the 6th inning. But as we've become accustomed to saying, when in doubt, turn to Kansas Robinson. The senior lays down a bunt, forces a rush throw that flies past the first baseman. Kaylee Avasado is rounding third, and she slides right in to give Northwestern the lead and the eventual victory. Cats looking for the sweep on Sunday, and Emma Ray is still mashing the ball. This is her 12th homer of the season, 2nd in the series, and the Cats set the tone bright and early. Now jump into the 5th inning. Northwestern's looking for the sweep against Michigan State. Freshman True Medina finds the right center gap, and a miscue gives Avery Garden the opportunity to score. The Cats wheel away in celebration as they run-rule the Spartans for the 2nd time this series. They improve to 11-7 in conference play.
Well, after the Michigan State series, softball took down Northern Illinois 5-4 in a road matchup on Tuesday. The Wildcats used a 2-run 7th to take a late lead before benefiting from a controversial game-ending ground-out call in the bottom of the 7th on what would have been a game-tying single for the Huskies.
And when we come back, Northwestern's draft hopefuls prepare for a potentially life-altering night.
My relationship with Giannis is unique. We're from the same country, we're from the same city. Being a Northwestern alum, I think, has tremendous advantages in the sports industry. To me, that community, it's been with me for 20 plus years.
Ready, set, now!
Welcome back on into Sports Night. Calvin, the NFL draft is creeping ever closer, and I know you're a big Commanders fan. You got any predictions on where they go with number 7?
Well, Braedon, I'm hoping the front office decides to bolster the weapons for Jaden Daniels and pick up Carnell Tate as a receiving option at number 7. That is, if he gets past your Browns at number 6 overall.
Yeah, well, that's funny you mentioned Carnell Tate because that's actually who I want the Browns to take at number 6. But then again, when do the Browns ever do what the fans want? I mean, they just continuous disappointment my whole life, 21 years. When's it going to end? I'm fine, though. I'm fine, Calvin.
Well, I mean, on a slightly more positive note, Northwestern is looking to make some waves in the NFL draft, and it looks like the Wildcats might have a real chance to make an impact with at least one alum going off the board. The Wildcat most likely to hear his name called this weekend is offensive tackle Caleb Tiernan. He made a big impact on the field as a Big Ten all-second-team addition, but his teammate Azomo Radakai said his influence extends further.
It was awesome working with CT. He's somebody who takes everything super seriously, the way he trains, the way he works, everything, as you were saying, is pass protection. I just try to emulate everything he did, how he came in the morning, what he did before practice, and just try to do everything he did to make himself better. I try to do the same thing.
Well, on the other side of the ball, Wildcat fans need to keep an eye out for defensive lineman Aiden Hubbard. Defensive coordinator Tim McGargle had the pleasure of coaching him, and he says Hubbard is an all-around threat.
Hubbard is your classic 4-3 defensive end, strong enough to play the run, but is a really savvy pass rusher, and he's one of those guys that could stay on the field for all 3 downs. But he's a true vet. He knows how to work angles, he knows how to work hands, and at the next level, you got to just use those little details in your pass rush to, win on some pretty elite offensive tackles, and I think Aiden can do that.
And as the NFL draft inches closer and closer, it's time to see where some of Northwestern's top prospects stand ahead of night 1. Sports Night's very own Yoni Zacks joins us in the studio to give his analysis on where a few Wildcats could see themselves following their time in purple. Yoni, welcome in.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And so, Yoni, we'll start off. Just who are some of the players that could be drafted for Northwestern? When do you see their name being called?
So I think there are really 3 guys, Braedon, that we're going to see getting drafted, and those are Caleb Tiernan, like we already mentioned, Aiden Hubbard, we already mentioned. I could see him going in the 7th round, but to focus on Tiernan, he was a star offensive tackle. He's someone that Braun counted on as a senior leader throughout most of the season. He mentioned that a lot in the offseason. However, I've been seeing a lot online, specifically Dane Brugler from The Athletic put together the Beast, and he had him moving inside to guard. He's got a 6.24 prospect grade from NFL.com that equates to like average starter tier, and his technique and IQ have always been super strong. And then kind of moving to his offensive line teammate in Evan Berenson. Berenson was tied for 6th at the combine in the vertical jump. He was an offensive guard at Northwestern. He had a 79 PFF grade, 16th overall at guard, and a 74.7 passing grade. He's been seeing a lot about his run blocking. He's a very strong player, very, very strong. He's quick on his feet. However, a lack of length similar to Tiernan could be seen as somewhat of a big concern. He's also an older rookie. He had a medical redshirt, and he also had the COVID season, so he's been playing since 2019-2020. And then finally, we have Aiden Hubbard, defensive end, and he is someone that has been mocked a lot in the really late 6th or 7th rounds. Brugler called him a lot more steady than wow, someone that's been very consistent. 7 sacks and 7.5 sacks and 6 TFLs. Both of those are first on Northwestern. He was someone that really led this team on the defensive edge.
Awesome, and a lot of solid prospects for Northwestern, it looks like. Yoni, I know you had the opportunity to actually attend the NFL Combine and see some of this in action. What did you see from Northwestern's prospects at the Combine? What can you say about them?
So the first 2 players that I saw at the Combine were Caleb Tiernan and Evan Berenson, and both of them were super strong. Tiernan actually had the highest vertical jump of any O-lineman at the Combine, and he was tied for 11th in the broad jump. Both of those really put him above the class. He didn't do as many drills, and neither did Evan Berenson, because of a lot of players choose not to do the drills and focus more on the interviews. And Berenson, he's someone that I thought he had a really strong combine. He tied for 6th in the vertical jump, as we can see right here. And then moving on to Aiden Hubbard. Aiden Hubbard, I did not get to see him at the combine, but he had a very strong pro day with his broad jump and his 40-yard dash, and all of those together have really got the scouts' eyes on them. I know Caleb Tiernan at the combine had official interviews with the Eagles, the Bears, and the Texans, and he had unofficial interviews with a few other teams.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Yoni. It'll be interesting to see where some of this year's crop of Wildcats end up in round 1 of the NFL Draft, which begins tonight at 7 p.m. Central.
Coming up next, we'll take you back to the diamond to recap some baseball action. More Sports Night is on the way.
Trying to work my way out of the prison system was the most difficult challenge of my life. It only became tangible once I became a Northwestern student.
One, two, three, four.
Welcome back to Sports Night, and Braedon, it's hard to believe we're already rounding third on this week's episode.
Yeah, you know, time is really flying, Calvin, but honestly, I'd say we're knocking it out of the park so far.
Well, we'll take a 7th inning stretch on baseball, Braedon. First, let's catch up with a former Wildcat. Northwestern graduate Jennifer Haskell, who played soccer for NU and was an anchor for NNN Sports Night, was recognized as a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree in Europe's Sports and Games category for her work with Deloitte Sports Business Group in London. And our own Sammy Krimstein caught up with Haskell for an all-new edition of Sports Night Alumni Arena.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And first of all, how are you doing and how exciting is it to receive that honor last week, I believe?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing really well. Yeah, it was quite the surprise. I actually found out just at the time that the list went live, so I didn't know ahead of the announcement.
At Deloitte, you're the knowledge and insights lead working with their sports business group. Tell me a little bit more about what your day to day looks like and some of the things that you get to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess within the sports business group, I have two main roles. One is to spread the messages of the sports business group far and wide across the market. The second thing that is probably my main priority is supporting our team leadership with our go-to-market approach for some of our largest, most impactful projects. One of the big things that I was asked to do, I believe in 2022, was to write a report on women's sport projecting the value of the industry. I didn't realize the impact that that would have. And the report has since reached billions of people, not even millions, billions of people.
Here at Northwestern, you guys had some really great teams when you were there, staple in the NCAA tournament. I'm also curious about the relationship with some of your teammates and how they've shaped, who you are now and your successful career in the sports business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I got really, really lucky with the girls that I got to play with. There's not probably a week that goes by that the group chat isn't active. I've always loved stories and being a storyteller. So Sports Night was my outlet to do that. Like I said, I still have those connections from Sports Night from the people that I sat on the desk with, which is incredible. And so we really created a lot of those memories, both in the production studio and also out of it.
If you could think of one word to describe the impact that Northwestern has had on you, what would it be?
Probably community. However many years down the road now, I still feel that same sense of community, that bleed purple type of behavior and mindset. I didn't expect that to continue this many years down the line. I think the alumni base is incredible. Again, I think that community aspect is something that I feel 100%. So that's probably my one word.
Thanks so much to Jennifer for coming on. We're so excited to see what the future holds.
Northwestern baseball has had its share of ups and downs throughout its 2026 campaign, but it looked to right the ship last weekend against a very tough Big Ten foe. And Ann Arbor, Michigan is the venue for Northwestern baseball's latest Big Ten bout. And this one would start well for the Cats. After loading the bases against a reeling Kurt Barr, Owen McElpatrick's single gave them the lead in the first inning. Strong start for the Cats. In the bottom of the second, though, Braedon Jeffries rips one just out of the reach of Jack Lausch for a bases-clearing double, and Northwestern, just like that, loses the lead just as quickly as they earned it. And we'll be jumping all the way to the ninth inning for this next clip. The Cats have a glimmer of hope thanks to a Jay Slater two-run shot. Ryan Kuchrak would also go deep right here, but it was going to be too little, too late. Northwestern drops game one, 7-6. Now moving to that Saturday matchup. Going to be the Wolverines who drew first blood. This double by Josh Campbell capped off what would be a 5-run first inning for Michigan, a lead that they were not going to relinquish the rest of the way. The Wolverines take game two, a dominant score of 8-3. The Cats were going to look to avoid the sweep on Sunday. Sunday was a very low-scoring affair with Jun-Sung Park's 4th inning RBI single right here, proving to be the telling blow. We'll see Michigan's David Lally Jr. He tossed 9 innings of one-hit ball, striking out 6 and walking just 3 Wildcats. This gem of a play by second baseman Colby Turner was just the cherry on top for the Wolverines as they sweep the Northwestern Wildcats in Ann Arbor.
Now moving to the midweek matchup, Cats back in Evanston hosting the Bradley Braves with James Whitaker taking the mound. Then after going hitless in the Michigan series, Jackson Freeman kicked off the first inning scoring, launching a 2-run homer to right center in his first at-bat of the series' 8th long ball of the year. Then in the 6th, Jack Lausch does the same, his 3rd RBI of the afternoon, part of a 3-for-4 day, and that was his 9th bomb of the season, tied for most on the Wildcats. Then Alex Grant recorded the save on the bump, crossing the final 3.2 innings and only allowing 1 base runner. Northwestern gets the comfortable win with the help of a 6-run second and a few long balls. Final score 11-6.
And the very next day, Northwestern taking on St. Thomas. Bottom of the second, Wildcats down 2. Bases loaded for Owen McElpatrick. He smacks one to the warning track in right field. Over the fielder's head, it's a bases clearing double. The Cats take a 3-2 lead. Now the 7th inning, Northwestern up 7-5. Jack Lausch has bases loaded. He drives it down the right field line for a 3-run triple. And later in the inning, Shane Hofstadler is hit by a pitch to take a 10-run advantage, and the Wildcats win 15-5, run-ruling St. Thomas in just 7 innings. And with a pair of midweek victories under their belt, the Cats will look to initiate a winning streak this weekend when they head up to Minneapolis to face the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now to take a look at some other results from this last week, the women's tennis team split its 2 matchups, beating Rutgers and falling to Maryland. Illinois, meanwhile, shut out the men's team 4-0. Women's golf finished 8th of 12 teams in Columbus, Ohio, and men's golf placed 7th of 15 teams at the Hoosier Invitational.
Last Sunday, former Northwestern golfer Matt Fitzpatrick defeated Scotty Scheffler in a playoff for his 2nd RBC Heritage title. Scheffler, the current world number 1, fell short against a red-hot Fitzpatrick. The current world number 3 has won twice in the past month. And here's where you can catch the Cats. Catch lacrosse at 2 p.m. on Friday as they play Michigan in Ann Arbor in the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament.
The Wildcats are in Minneapolis to play baseball against Minnesota on Saturday at 3 p.m.
And softball takes on the Boilermakers at Purdue on Sunday at 12 p.m. Don't go anywhere. We've got Plays of the Week coming up when we come back.
I'm Kelly McEvers, founding host of the NPR podcast Embedded.
I'm James Edwards, host of the Unresolved podcast from Frontline.
I'm Antonia Cereijido, former senior producer of Anything for Selena podcast and current executive producer at Elias Studios.
My narrative, since I've been locked up and kind of made my transition, has been like redemption, accountability.
When I come into the classroom environment, every individual that sits amongst me takes education seriously.
Welcome back, folks, and as we wrap up another thrilling episode of Sports Night, we are officially underway in the long-awaited NFL Draft.
But before we get to the fun, let's reveal our top 3 selections for the Plays of the Week.
Plays of the Week, best time of the week. Kicking in at the number 3 spot, we've got action from a bunch of sports this week, but we're going to the Diamond. Northwestern up against Bradley when Ryan Kucherak goes liftoff on a pitch out to left field. No doubter for the shortstop who continues his hot hitting here in the second half.
2 to softball. Next for number 2, a liner for softball floated into center field. Was a tough one to catch seemingly initially for Northwestern, but guess who? Kaylee Avasado comes running in for the diving catch. Just a superb play to start the game, and Avasado continues to impress out in center field.
And our top play of the week, it's going to be lacrosse facing off against number 11 Michigan on the road, up 1 late, and Noelle Cumberland fires it home through traffic to ice the game. Huge one for the Cats as they clinch their 4th consecutive Big Ten title.
Well, the draft is here, Braedon, and it's almost time for Fernando Mendoza to update his LinkedIn.
I think I speak for all of us, Calvin, when I say we will be anxiously awaiting that job update. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Sports Night. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at @NNN_sports and on Twitter at @NNNsports. For Calvin Kaplan, I've been Braedon Olsen. Thanks for tuning in, and keep your sunny side up, Evanston.